Thank you for listening to the Old English D podcast. New episodes are live every Tuesday, so make sure to subscribe and follow to keep up to date on all the new episodes. And as we always say, go Tigers.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Old English D, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Casey. So always joined by Josh. How are you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? Just got done watching a first game of the Texas Rangers series. This team is somehow back at 500 baseball. 30-30 coming into today. Woo! Man.
You know, somebody told me via text message this week this team would never see 500 again.
Well, hey, I mean, I told you I'd be happy if I was wrong. I did follow that up. If I would be very happy. Yeah. How long were you saving that one for?
I mean, I had to bring it out at some point.
Yes, I did say that.
No, but how was your weekend, buddy?
Oh, here we go. Because I came at you last week about never asking me. You're not even going to answer my question. You're just going to... It was great. You know, today is my dad's 68th birthday, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so we celebrated on Sunday. Went to Bob Evans. For my dad's birthday. It sounds kind of perplexing, kind of weird of a choice for a family, you know, birthday dinner, but my brother works there, and otherwise he wouldn't have been able to join. So he, you know, my dad wanted to have dinner with the whole fam, and my brother often misses out on all of the family gatherings. So it was actually kind of nice. And you know, you have your expectations set somewhere, and you just kind of place them there. You know, Bob Evans might exceed them sometimes. Sometimes. What about you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Well, the first half of it was good. I had a raging migraine the last 2 days, and I'm just recovering from.
You get those quite often.
Been fun.
What's your remedy for migraines?
Sometimes caffeine helps. Sometimes sleep is the only thing that really helps, and I think most of that is just helps me ride it out because I'm asleep and I can't feel the pain.
That was really dark.
It wasn't supposed to be. It's a very ocular condition for me. So my vision gets real messed up. And
do you just enclose yourself like a vampire in a dark room? And
well, I mean that's where the sleep comes in because my eyes have to be closed for that too. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. But yeah, it did eat into my weekend, and I didn't get done the things that I wanted to. But, you know, we're here, and we're feeling better, and yeah.
Did you go to work
Tigers
today?
won. And I did manage to make it into work. I had a pretty big meeting I had to be at. So,
dude, migraines are nothing.
I struggled through it.
They're nothing to mess with. I mean, like, my sister used to get them, like, all the time. You know what her remedy was?
What's that?
Chiropractor. I don't know if it like actually helped like long term, but she doesn't seem to get them anymore. So like I don't know. I bet you there's some kind of correlation with the spine and your nervous system and the chiropractor.
I bet.
Maybe it's worth a shot.
Can't hurt at this point.
Yeah, I don't. Whenever someone says they have a migraine and like when they talk about it and it's so like bad and in such a terrible condition, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever had a migraine then, because like you talk about it and it's like, I mean, everything is over, and I'm like, I've had really bad headaches, but I've never like been in such a dire situation. And then you talk about it and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced that before.
It's so funny, and this doesn't need to be a headache podcast. I mean, it is usually because we cover the Tigers, but
zing.
Yeah, I don't know. But migraines for me, and from what I've heard from other people that have them, typically there is another significant symptom that goes along with it, along with the, headache pain. So it's usually balance is hard sometimes for some people. Sometimes their vision is messed up, and it's a more of a chemical, something's going on in your brain. So I've also had bad headaches before, and they are two very different things.
Okay. How does the crying child help? Does that make it better, worse? Where are we at with that?
No, that's been very nice because Alex, my wife, has been very gracious the last few months. Whenever they pop up, and they pop up every once in a while, she tends to take on more of the load and kind of tries to isolate me a little bit and help me out. They went to church in the morning, so I had a lot of the morning on Sunday to kind of recover and try to get my bearings a little bit. So no, she does really good in it, and she's really helpful with that because the sometimes you just got to deal with it, and she knows that. But
Nice.
yeah,
It's good to have that life partner. Parenting's a dual routine, so that's good.
yeah.
Yes, as you mentioned, the Detroit Tigers can also be a headache, and we, for some reason, every week get around a mic and we talk about our favorite baseball team because that is what we do on the Old English D podcast. Of course, you can find us on all of the socials wherever you consume social media at the Old English D pod, and wherever you listen to podcasts on all the podcast services at the Old English D. We have quite a hefty one for you today. Got some injury updates, got an outlook on the June calendar, the June schedule, of course some takeaways. But Josh, we would be remiss, I should say, if we did not start out with what many would call about time. Spencer Torkelson is now a Toledo Butthead. And
Okay.
applause. Can you cut in applause sound effects right there? The cheering. No, I'm kidding. It's actually quite sad. It actually, and I have to tell you, this news broke late last night after Torque sat for the second time during the Boston Red Sox series. And it started to become real, and it started to become reality. We didn't hear that Torque was being sent down first. We first heard that, of course, Justin Henry Malloy was getting the call up from Evan Petzold. And once it started to set in that Torque was actually getting sent down, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And it's good all around, right? Initial knee-jerk reaction, like it needs to happen. Clearly there is something amiss with Spencer Torkelson. But it's sad on a Tigers organizational level because we've failed this dude. Like, we have failed this dude. He has come to a place, and he's kind of failed us on some level too, and there just has not been a marriage that needs to happen so far. And the fact that now he's going down for the second time in 3 years of his major league career is concerning, to say the least. I've been calling for this for about a month. I know, obviously, you are way more in the Torque camp than... And obviously are always rooting for Torque to do great things, as we all should be in rooting for Tiger fans. But I've been noticing some trends for the last month and a half, and it's good that we're going to rectify them. But how are you taking the news that Spencer Torkelson has been optioned to AAA?
It's really just been a slow realization that something needs to happen. He had about a week and a half, and that even might be a bit generous, but he had a week at the least of time in May where he hit the 3 home runs. He was still making decent contact, and it looked like his timing and his confidence was coming back, and then he just regressed again the last about 10 days to 2 weeks into back where how he started the year. He's really struggling, I think, with his timing and his game plan at the plate. He's not necessarily having awful at-bats necessarily, but it's when he swings the bat, it just doesn't look confident. It doesn't look like he's looking for anything in particular. He's just swinging at the ball and hoping he makes contact, and it's turning into a lot of really weak contact, whether it's pop-ups, ground balls, fly-outs, foul-outs, that kind of thing. I think a lot of his success, if you can call it that, early was a little bit of luck. He had a lot of doubles early, and I think it was just stuff sneaking through, and just him being able to put the bat on the ball a little bit more. And now we're seeing the kind of the results of what his current mental state at the plate is. So I wouldn't call it ever a good thing that your 1-1 draft pick, top prospect type player gets sent to AAA for the second time in 3 seasons. I don't think I would ever be able to put good or anything on it, but it was definitely necessary and needed right now for him, because other than that, he's just going to keep on struggling here in Detroit, and it's just going to continue to get worse and to spiral into a worse situation. I know you've been calling it for a while, and maybe that was just me being a Torque fan and really thinking he could work his way out of it, but he's clearly not going to work his way out of it, at least at the majors. He needs some fresh perspectives down in AAA for it.
Well, you were remembering, as many of us do, the second half of last year where things were in a really good spot, and we thought we kind of climbed out of the tough patches that we had with Torque for 2 years, basically 1.5 years at that point, and we thought we really found something. 31 home runs, anything over 30 home runs, production in the middle of the order. I think he finished last year with just over a 230 batting average, and OPS plus in the hundreds. Like it's something to look back on and say, wow, that second half of the year was really, really good. And then you come into this year feeling a little bit more excited for a full year of Torque, and feeling like there's something to grow on, and there's a foundation that was built, and now we can kind of have a launching pad off of that. And then really from game one, it's just he's looked out of sorts. And we, of course, had the home run drought for as long as we did. He finally hit the home run. Okay, maybe now we're finally coming out of it. And it just felt like every time he kind of hit like this milestone, of course, and the narrative too was that, he led the majors in doubles for a minute. You were big on that. It was a great observation. No one would have even really paid attention, and he was leading the majors in doubles for a minute. He just wasn't consistent. And then the home run finally came. Then a couple more home runs came, and it's like, okay, maybe. And then as soon as he felt like we were gaining traction, you look at his at-bats again, late on middle fastballs. I think he has like a on-base percentage of fastballs in the middle of the zone and less than 200. I mean, just almost like insane stats. And it comes to a point where it's like, okay, what do we do to get this guy right? I mean, it's more pressing than Javier Baez at this point, because he is a 1-1 pick. He is the future of the organization. And, really, it's either we fix him or it turns into a Jared Kelenic situation with the Mariners, and he is shipped off somewhere else. And it's just, good riddance. It didn't work out. To your point, the last 10 games for him, he's had 40 plate appearances, 108 batting average, 175 on base percentage, slugging under 300, and OPS below 500. And I wish I could say that was the only stretch of 10 games where those stats aren't mirrored, but there's plenty of stretches where that's the case. His OPS plus for this year is sitting, I think, right at 70, and I think as a whole, you can't justify with people like Justin Henry Malloy, who has a great OBP down in AAA, and you have replacement players that can actually give you competitive at-bats and say, no, we're going to keep this guy up here. Does he have pretty okay defense? Does it feel like, there's anyone that can really replace him at first base defensively? No, I would say not. I mean, actually, Sunday's game where they kind of trialed Urshela at first base, I and obviously when Torque was sitting, I'm like, oh, here we go. Like this is super interesting. But then once they sat Torque, I'm like, okay, they're not gonna sit Torque and then demote him. Well, that's exactly what they ended up doing. But seeing Urshela there have some pretty good plays, like he does at the hot corner at third base, that was pretty telling too. Where it's like, okay, maybe we're gonna be okay. If we do kind of like the first baseman by committee, it seems like it's a lot of playing time is going to go to Canna as long as he stays as healthy as he can be with this hip situation he's dealing with. Maybe some reps from Vierling, and obviously maybe some reps from Urshela. It's going to be an interesting adjustment for this whole team. You know, you have guys like Riley who only want the best for Torque, his best friend on the team, and now you know the whole dynamic of everything is changing. I think as a whole, the camaraderie and the you know the vibe of the team has to go on, and I don't know how much Torque plays a role in that. But it realistically, his vibes have been off for a long time. I was looking for Evan Woodbury tweet that he put out today. Evan Woodbury, of course, of M Live. If you take out Torque's totals minus the 3 months at the end of last season, he has 960 plate appearances, 20 home runs, 207 batting average, and a 620 OPS. Outside the 3 months that he did rake last year, at the end of last year. He's an OPS under 700, just 20 home runs and barely over 200 batting average. That's not a 1-1 pick. That's not a 1-1 pick, and that's not what we got. And so when you put it all together, they have got to have an organizational push to fix Spencer Torkelson. Do you think this is a long-term situation in AAA, or do we see him pretty quickly?
I think it's going to come down to two things. I think it's going to come down to Torque's ability to turn it around. And it's going to come down to the injury situation. If there's more injuries or things that happen in Detroit, I think they may push him to be back. But I think they really want him to get right. And something that somebody made a comment on, this isn't as prevalent in baseball just because of the vast amount of minor leagues that are built out and things like that. But Torque is not a Scott Harris pick. He's not a Scott Harris prototype player in general. So we may be looking at a Jared Kelenic situation where, you know, the organization may feel like cutting bait might be the best choice for both parties at some point. And I don't like saying that, and I'd hate to have that conversation, but I mean, Jared Kelenic is finding some legs in Atlanta, and I think it would be very difficult to struggle in Atlanta right now, but I don't know. I just feel like that may be closer on the horizon than a lot of people would care to admit.
That would hurt a lot, though. I mean, and you know it's going to happen, right? Where, like, you know, we see Torque in someone else's jersey, and he's actually finally kind of finding his stride. We know it's in there. We've seen it. It's just how do we harness it consistently? And you make a great point that this is not Scott Harris's baby. He is not one of Scott Harris's guys. And so how long is the leash for Spencer Torkelson? I don't know. I would have loved to see what kind of, you know, package he could have been a part of for, you know, as crazy as it sounds, a Juan Soto, you know, or like, you know, something to that caliber, I guess, but, you know, no one's really on Juan Soto's caliber, but, you know, some kind of sustainable, proven talent that can be like our next Miguel Cabrera, because, you know, it really wasn't until the middle of last year where we really felt like, okay, maybe there's something here. And of course, we're never gonna expect Miguel Cabrera to Spencer Torkelson. That's not fair. That's not fair to anyone, right? That's not really what I'm saying. But there is some level of we need a productive first baseman. And another great point that Evan Woodbury made today is you have guys like CJ Crone and Brandon Belt who would have given us 10 times more production to this point than Spencer Torkelson, and they came and find jobs in the MLB. They were being pushed into early retirement, and they would have hands down given at least major league replacement levels for pennies on the dollar than what Torkelson has provided for us. I understand Torkelson's the cheaper option. You don't have to, he is still, making, less than $1 million, I think, and, major league minimum and maybe just above it. If you're not even reaching the level of production that says this is major league average, what are we doing? What are we truly getting at here? And I do think they took too long to make this move. I think, 40, well, I guess it was 55 games or whatever, 56 games to come to the place of like, yeah, we need to do something. Splitting the season into thirds rather than a quarter, like I said, at 40 games could cost them. Mm-hmm. And that seems kind of maybe short term and childish to say, but those 20 games could end up mattering. Especially when as of tonight, we're only 3.5 games out of the wild card. We're treading water. We're somehow staying right there. I know we're kind of in a place where it's like, we don't think this team can really make the postseason. Well, if we're still right in it and we've had this kind of mediocre of a start, maybe there's something. And did Torkelson's slow start cost us? We'll never know. But it's time for him to go get things right. And please hear me in this, and you need to hear me in this too. I want him to get right. I'm not rooting against Spencer Torkelson. I never have. I never will. But we need to see some progress and some trend in a different direction. Honestly, what I really want to see, I want to see a completely different Spencer Torkelson when we see him again. I kind of love, even though it's not really working out for Badu right now, but I kind of love what Badu's doing. I love his new stance. He looks hitterish in the plate. I'm not saying that Torque has to change everything. I think as I kind of talked about, I can't remember if it was last week on air or if I was talking about it, on the podcast, or if I was talking about it just with you, but there is something too perfect about his swing and his mechanics, which sounds silly, but too much perfection doesn't play well in the majors. I mean, it's the Billy Beane story all over and again. And it just seems like if you don't have any emergency and if you're not willing to take some hacks at some pitches and emergency counts, you're not really going to have success. And Torque was just late on everything, on literally everything. So I would like to see a little bit more emergency out of him. There is apparently some list of things that they want Torque to work on. Of course, a lot of the beat writers, as they do, as they do, will hide it behind paywalls and such. So I'm not really sure what that list is on a lot of those beat writers' reports. But what's the number one thing that you want to see from Torque to make his way back?
The thing that kept us going last year through the rough first part of the year was the fact that he was making solid contact. He was barreling up pitches. He had a pretty high average exit velocity a lot of the beginning of the year last year, and that it wasn't getting rewarded for it. And I think that was really the reason for his success in the second half. I'd really like to see him hit the ball hard, whether or not it's for home runs, for average, for whatever. I would just like to see the fact that he's being decisive on pitches and using his at-bats to hit the ball hard. That's really all I would like to see, because that was the key to his success last year.
Hard contact typically does trend to things are going to start turning the corner for you. What's so interesting, and maybe you can speak to this too, like, what's the key difference and what's maybe the behind the scenes thing that they saw with Colt Keith and they stuck with Colt Keith? Maybe it was the contract. Maybe it truly was the fact that he signed this big contract and they're kind of married to him now. They kind of have to lie in the bed that they made. Or was it something, mechanic wise? Was it the toe tap? Was it, something that they saw? They're like, oh, this could actually lead to some progress here. And what was the thing that they saw in Torque was like, oh, this is actually going in the wrong direction. What do you think it was?
Yeah. It truly all comes down to the approach. And you see when Cole is up, and even the first part of the year, he had a plan. He had a plan at the plate, and the plan at the plate was always hit the ball for a home run very early. And it was leading him into some not great at bats, not great situations, with outcomes and things like that. But he had a plan and he was being decisive. Now, his mindset had to be, adjusted a little bit to, just make some hard contact and put the ball in play. And once he figured that out, obviously he's had a lot more success recently. Torque just doesn't have a plan. It looks like he's literally going up there, and each pitch is its own entity. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know what he's going to throw me. I'm just going to try to react and hit the ball. And you see him just be so off timing wise because of it. And that's something that's more of, in my mind anyways, way more of a ground up rebuild type of thing that you have to do at the plate, rather than just Colt saying, okay, I'm going to shorten my swing up here. I'm going to go to a toe tap. I'm not going to try to hit the ball to Windsor. I'm going to try to, just spray the ball around the ballpark and put the bat on the ball and do what I'm good at. Whereas Torque has to go back and say, okay, I need to learn how to plan an at bat again, and be smart about my swings, and anticipate certain pitches and certain counts and things like that. That's a lot more elementary, and I hate to say it like that, but that's truly what it feels like right now for him.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think it is just plan, and I think it's plan of attack, and I think it's he looks like he does not know what he's doing at the plate at the moment, and you're right that is quite elementary, but I think that's where we're at. So again, hope he figures it out. Hope whatever plan they have for him, as I hope as robust as it is, it works out. The corresponding move for him was finally Justin Henry Malloy gets his chance. The number 6 Tigers prospect, according to MLB.com. Made his debut tonight at DH, which was quite surprising. I was, of course, following all of the drama of the Torque situation, and before Petzold even had they're calling up Justin Henry Malloy, he was talking about some recent appearances that he's actually had in AAA. And he was talking about how the last 3 or 4 games he's been only pinch hitting, really only coming in against high leverage relievers, and trying to put the ball in play and really make a competitive at bat late in the game. And that theoretically kind of echoed what his role was going to be with the Tigers. Well, actually, Tigers have a different plan for him, and that's give him all the at bats that Torkelson is now losing out on. I think a lot of DH time is probably warranted. And I guess AJ said today that he's going to kind of creep into the outfield as the time goes on. But AJ said it. I mean, he's going to get a lot of at-bats. He's going to get a lot of time. Went 0 for 3 tonight. A couple strikeouts in there, too. He looked slightly overmatched for sure. His first at-bat, though, first pitch swinging, which we all know how I feel about that, but it was no one on base. And he did barrel up the fastball. You knew he was going to get a fastball. I mean, it's like Evaldi's like, okay, what do we got here? And so he barreled it up pretty well. I wouldn't necessarily call it a home run in any parks or anything, but it looked like he hit the ball hard. So, what do you think of Malloy? First dash of sightings from him.
With his playing time, there's something that you got to keep in mind. We don't have Kerry Carpenter in this lineup, so I think he's probably going to get more of a Kerry Carpenter workload right now, rather than the Torkelson workload, just because of positioning and things. But with Kerry out, I think that opens up more of that DH time. It's going to open up the outfield time as well. And AJ Hinch has this propensity to, when a guy gets called up and when a hitter gets called up, he likes to throw him in the lineup as soon as possible. It's not happened a couple times this year. It didn't happen for Kennedy it didn't happen for Wentz, but it happened to Vlade. Vlade got in the game, first game. He was back, whether it's pinch hit or not. So it was good to see. That's a lot of confidence to throw a guy in at the 6 hole in his first major league appearance, especially against a pitcher that they faced tonight with oh man,
Nathan Eovaldi.
Eovaldi, man, I could see his face. I could not think of his name. Who had really good stuff tonight too. So
yeah, I mean, he's nursing back from a groin injury. You would never know it. You'd never know it.
No, he looked dynamite.
Except for the fact that he took him out with only like 60 pitches or whatever. Thank God. Thank you, Maddox. Thank you, Bruce Bochy, for not being at the game. Thank you.
The one thing I really like about Malloy is how he conducts his at-bats. And it's something that we've talked about before. It's been talked about quite a bit. So far this year in AAA, 39 walks to 52 strikeouts. He's got a 410 on-base percentage to a 253 batting average. So he gets on base, and he has really, really good at-bats. He has a really good mastery of the zone, which I think will only help him in the major leagues. It's going to take some adjustment, and we've said that, and we thought it was going to be the case for Wenceel Perez, but clearly he's doing just fine. But when he puts the ball in play, he typically puts the ball in play hard, and I think they just like the way that he conducts plate appearances. Like I said, I mean, it's one of the guys that Scott Harris traded for him, right? I'm not making that up.
Yeah, no, it was because that was the Braves trade, Joe Jimenez.
Yeah. So clearly, Scott Harris prototype hitter, kind of like what I was talking about with Torque. I mean, he controls the strike zone. He has good at bats, and he provides good value for that. So I'm excited to see what he can bring. I think he could end up being like a two hitter, second in the lineup type of guy. I think that he could really do well in that position, getting on base, that type of thing. But no, I'm excited to see it. I hope he can handle righties. I think that'll be big for him if he can get out of this platoon cycle we've got going on in the lineup.
You ready for me to blow your mind?
I'm ready.
I think that was a El Avila trade.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was right in the middle there, right at the beginning or whatever. This article is from December 8th, 2022. So that would put it. Nope, it was Scott Harris. Okay, Scott Harris quote right here. It must have been like one, obviously like it must have been Soto, Greg Soto.
That first off season.
Yeah, whew, that was right there at the beginning. So that was a tough one. Yes, Joe Jimenez trade. Just under 900 OPS too for our boy Justin Malloy, and this is something that I kind of want to talk to you about. Now that we have, let's say the trio, let's say Colt Keith, Wenceel Perez, Justin Henry Malloy. With the Colt Keith experiment, that was, hey, let's not bring him up until he's absolutely for sure ready. We want every part of his game well-rounded. We want everything to be, every I dotted, T crossed, and let's make him a major league player. Let's leave him in AAA for as long as possible. And we all know how April went. Signs a big contract, beginning of the year, in spring training, has a pretty great spring training, and then April happened. And now May has happened. Wenceel Perez clearly was not on the short list to come up. He is on the 40-man, and that is true, but it was definitely an emergency situation. Wenceel had to come up because of some injuries to Addis Leonard, Ryan Kreidler. Our infield depth, our outfield depth, very limited when Wenceel had to come up. Dude just paves away. Dude just hits. He hits the ball hard. He's a spark. If it wasn't for all of his production at the plate, he'd already be down again. He found a way. We'll see what happens with Malloy. But Malloy is maybe more on the side of the Colt Keith experiment, where let's keep him down as long as possible. Let's try and refine every part of his game to zero him in. I just am so against this method, dude. And Wenzel proves it. If you're, and honestly, Colt Keith does too. When you have openly admitted, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but when you've openly admitted that the gap between AAA and the majors is as big as it's ever been, why would you leave these kids in AAA as long as you are? And I'm looking specifically at Jace Young. I don't see a real reason to have Jace Young stay in the minors at this specific point, especially if this team's just going to float right around 500. I see zero reason to not get him to, especially if you think that this year is a little bit of a wash and not our year. Why would you ever waste those at-bats, those learning experiences, and that potential month and a half where it's like, this is your grooming period, use it, and guess what? There's no pressure. There's zero pressure. And honestly, I think they're kind of doing the emergency thing with Malloy too, where they're like, well, shoot, Torque is bad again. I guess we need some kind of reinforcements. Who's semi-ready? And Malloy's been ready. I mean, the dude has proven everything he needs to prove in AAA, and they just haven't brought him up. I don't know. Am I thinking about this too much, or am I a little bit crazy about my idea here that I'm kind of on your side where I want Jace Young here. And at the beginning of the year, I was not like that whatsoever. But now I kind of see the light where it's like, well, Keith didn't really work out, and Wenzel did. Why are, like, what the worst that could happen is they turn into Wenzel Perez. Am I crazy?
Well, for the last comment, yeah, the worst is not Wenzel Perez. The worst case scenario is not.
That's what I'm saying. That's a good thing. The worst that happens is they come into yeah, exactly. That's my point. That's going to be a great thing. They could help us.
The worst that could happen is they go 0 for 20 and get sent down in a week. That's the worst that could happen.
But my point is that hold on. I think you're flipping what I'm saying. They're scared that they will come up and they will not help us. The point is that if we're in a situation where we don't really, like, we're not really hurting for anything and we're just kind of in this treading water period, the worst that could happen is it turns out that, oh my gosh, he needs to see some more at-bats, or he needs to see some more major league pitching, and he needs some more seasoning, but at a major league level. And yeah, and at best, he turns into Wenzel Perez. My point is that either of those situations is a lot better now than it is when this team's actually competitive.
I think the concept behind what, and I'm not necessarily defending this is just how I understand it. I think the concept that they're going for is that they would like for the adjustment period in the major leagues, once these guys get here, to be as short as possible. Whether or not that's accurate or not, I think they're thinking that, if they're completely prepared, quote unquote, whatever that means in Scott Harris land, if they're completely prepared in AAA, that when they come to the big leagues, there's still going to be a gap there no matter what. Maybe this will make the adjustment period shorter than it would be if we just said, hey, you've had a good month and a half in Toledo, here you go, figure it out in the majors. That's kind of, as I understand it, what their thought process is. I still think it's too long how they're handling some of it. I think especially in the case of Keith and Malloy, Jace Young's been in AAA just since the start of the season. I think we're still in a decent.
Yep.
I think we're still in a decent spot for him, especially when you have to think about that you do have to make a corresponding move with Torque off this team, and when you think about not being able to move a guy like Javier Baez, there's not a guy that sticks out necessarily to go down in that case. And especially if Jace is going to play second or third, you've got guys that are doing well playing those two positions. But when it comes to the Malloy, Keith, Wenzel Perez situation, I truly think that you have to look at the specific guys. You have to look at how these guys handle at bats. I think Justin Henry Malloy was grossly mishandled by the Tigers. He is the perfect guy to bring up even a bit earlier than you think he's ready for, because of the plate approach that he has, because of how he, prepares for at bats, and the kinds of at bats that he puts in AAA. I think he's the perfect guy to figure it out in the big leagues. Whereas Colt Keith, I think he has to have that confidence, and he came into this, this year with the contract, and I think he did have confidence to kind of figure it out. It didn't look pretty the first month, but I think that confidence that he got at AAA by staying down there for so long kind of, buoyed him along to get to a May where he's now hitting the ball really, really well. I think there are some benefits to both ways, and I think that's why you really have to look at the guy specifically and to make that call based on who they are and how they perform. Defensively, this organization just needs to learn how to pick a position for a guy and to leave him there. That's been their crutch for the last 3 to 4 years, even under Al Avila, is that, we need a third baseman. Okay, well, we're going to move so-and-so, and they're going to play third base in the minors now. And it's not the position they may have played before. Oh, wow, we don't need a third baseman anymore. Well, we're just going to throw this infielder in the outfield and see what happens. I think that's delaying a lot of the timelines on these guys, and I think it's making things a lot more difficult than they need to be. And they're doing it a lot. So to answer your question, you're not crazy. I don't know if I completely agree with you or Scott in this manner. I just think that there are some cases where they've really failed some guys, and I hope that Malloy, is okay to make up for it and will have a good major league career in spite of that. But I think Colt Keith was perfectly played now that I've seen him played in the major leagues and how he's approaching at bats now.
But what if you would call him up in September last year and you would have negated his April? Where would this team be?
We've seen with Torque that offseason can really hurt you.
Yeah,
if you have success or failure,
it
doesn't matter.
I hear you, but I'm just thinking of and you can play what if for as long as possible. I understand that, but if his time of adjustment came in a year that really didn't matter, or whatever, and he really figured out how major league pitchers are going to attack him, what could have that looked like? And I know our April was a lot better than our May, so it's it's interesting that Colt Keith's May was a lot better than his April. Kind of shows how bad the team was in May. But realistically, right, if he had the opportunity to grow and to blossom in September and then also inevitably fail in September, would that have set him up for a better start to the year? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but it's an interesting thought experiment. The scouting report on Malloy is that you're going to get him out with breaking balls. So kind of looked like it. Evaldi gave him a nice dose of off speed in his following at bats after the first pitch fly out. So he's going to definitely have to adjust to some major league breaking stuff. And that is one thing that is true, right? The major league breaking ball and off speed is very different than the AAA off speed. So if you don't think he's ready for that, or, maybe that's the reason they keep him down for as long as they do, but kid can work an at bat, right? I mean, the kid can clearly draw a walk, and I don't think he's going to go out there swinging like Javi. Swings at sliders. So I think at any rate, he's gonna, hopefully do better and provide better at bats than both Javi and Torque, for that matter, have been providing so far. Another note that was kind of interesting with all of the hoopla with the Torque situation, Keston Hiura has now been released from the organization, kind of clearing up the spot for Torque. But we were kind of on the Keston Hiura train as of a month ago. He has cooled a bit in his box score for the rest of, or for, his following at bats after a pretty strong start. So he's sitting with where he was sitting with a 232 average in AAA, 312 on base percentage, slugging just over 400 with 6 home runs and let's see how many doubles, 10 doubles and a triple. Throw a triple in there for Keston Hiura. But alas, we will never see Keston Hiura in a Detroit jersey, unfortunately. Did you see the picture that was going around Tigers Twitter?
No.
Oh my gosh. It was one for the ages. It was a picture of Keston Hiura leaving AAA Toledo. Like basically, it was not a parking lot, but it was kind of like a adjacent sidewalk to it. Do you want to take a guess at what his batting gear and all of his, like, what his bags were branded?
What?
Milwaukee Brewers.
Wow.
He was walking out with Milwaukee Brewers batting gear bags. I was like, is this real? And that's the thing. Like, what's so scary about the internet is like, was that current or was that just like I don't know. But I think that was a current sighting of Keston Hiura. I don't know. We'll have to interrogate Tigers Torque Moil Tigers Torque Moil on Twitter, and the great the great Twitter account that is Tigers Torque Moil, to see if that was actually a real picture, or if it was somehow older or not current. But I thought that was pretty funny. So Keston Hiura not to be. I know you were slightly disappointed about that. Any thoughts on that?
If I have to decide between Hiura and Malloy, I definitely would take Malloy, and that's the trade-off that we have to have. So I'm okay with it. I was never completely sold on Hiura. Mm-hmm. It would have been nice to see what he could have brought. Mm-hmm. And if you ever pick a move for Torque, it's for a first baseman, and Hiura plays first base. So that would be the only odd part of it. But again, I think Gio and I think Canna will fill in okay at first for now.
It also kind of makes me wonder how is that a clue of how long Torque is to stay down? If they have to clear a spot, an organizational spot at first base for Spencer Torkelson in AAA, does that mean that this is a little bit longer of a stay than we would have thought?
Well, not to steal your segue here, but I think it says more good things about the Kerry Carpenter situation than it does for Torque. Wow. I think them not putting Kerry on the 60-day says that they think he may be back a little sooner.
Well, no. So the move for the 40-man, which I forgot to mark on here, but thank you for reminding me. The move for the 40-man was actually designated for assignment Buddy Kennedy.
Right, that's my point.
Oh, okay. But you're saying the fact that it wasn't Kerry at all, not that it just didn't have anything to do with Keston. You're saying the fact that it wasn't Kerry Carpenter at all is good. Right. Good news. Gotcha. Okay. Yes, as you were alluding to, of course, Kerry Carpenter. We technically have not even talked about that news yet. We're still dealing with it. It still hurts a little bit. Kerry Carpenter is on the 10-day IL as of, at this point, now 6 or 7 days ago. Initially, it was a lumbar strain in his back, but now it is officially a stress fracture. So that one hurts. That one hurts a lot. Our most consistent, best producing hitter is found himself on the IL. This is, it's romantic. It is truly romantic. The corresponding move for him was Akil Baddoo, who, again, looks hitterish. Had a nice home run in Boston. He's struck out a lot since he's come back. I love his spark. I love the energy he brings to the team. I will always love Akil Baddoo. I, of course, am biased because I have a Akil Baddoo jersey, but love me some Akil Baddoo, and I think some of the adjustments he's made will pay off in the long run. It really just depends on how much playing time he actually gets. But of course, he started tonight, so we shall see. Kerry Carpenter hurts. How do the Tigers bounce back from this one?
Well, Colt Keith picking up the slack a little bit helps. It's definitely a big help to have a lefty in the lineup who's maybe not hitting for as much home run power, but is still holding it off from that side of the plate. Riley seems to be maybe coming out of it a little bit of his little mini slump over there, so that's also helpful as well. But I mean, this team and lefties for some reason we've got a lot of them, more than a lot of teams I've noticed. So I don't know. I think it's still a weird injury. I think it's still weird how it all came about because I think the day before it was the whole weird Pittsburgh rainout situation when it technically happened.
Yeah, I
I
think it
don't
was
know
in the
what
middle of the
he
Boston
did.
series, or like right before the Boston series, right in there.
Well, he got put on the IL before that Pittsburgh series because they said they were gonna scratch him whether they played or not.
Oh,
And
okay, gotcha.
so
Interesting.
I don't know. It's the timing was weird because the day before he technically would have went on the IL, he
He
played and I think
pinch
he
hit.
hit a home run.
Yeah, right.
So I don't understand the timing of everything. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he responds to it. I mean, like I said, I think this not him them not taking the opportunity to put him on the 60-day says something hopefully positive about his condition and where he's at. But I mean, they didn't even let him travel on this road trip. So I don't know. It's very weird to me.
Yeah, no, I'm down bad about Kerry Carpenter. I don't think we see him again for a couple months at best. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe post All-Star break. Maybe I could see that. Unfortunately, yeah, I mean everything that they're kind of talking about. Every time AJ's asked about it, he kind of does the groan and he's like, "Well, we don't really know. We're just kind of playing it day by day," but then turned quickly into week by week. So yeah, I don't love the Kerry Carpenter situation. I had a bad feeling with the Shelby Miller stuff too, but he's already kind of on his way back, and he might even be ready for tomorrow in activation. So maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised with how it all turns out. But I just it's probably healthier to set your expectations at a certain level and then have them exceeded on when it all comes to pass. But I think he is such a good story for this team, and he's such a good feel good revelation for everything that this team's doing. He was the one that was drafted in the 19th round. I always mix up him and Scooby. Scooby, of course, was drafted in the 9th round. Kerry Carpenter, 19th round, and you have like countless stories like that around this team, of guys who I mean, like going all the way from undrafted Jason Foley to 19th round Kerry Carpenter to 9th round Tarek Skubal, who they've just turned themselves into productive everyday major leaguers, and that's why we love the sport. That is why we love baseball so much, and we hope it doesn't keep him down for too long. That's always I guess that's why we love baseball. This is also why we hate baseball, because it's such a fickle situation where it's like one day you can feel fine, and then the next day you wake up and, oh, I have a hip thing. I'm Mark Canna and I'm on the way to my IL stint, and it seems to be like a day-to-day situation. And in Kerry Carpenter, it very, very much felt like out of nowhere, these things can just happen, and then it turns out it's a stress fracture. It seems like in today's game, where you're playing 162 games, you are always playing through something. It's just kind of don't look at it and don't pay attention to it, and maybe it'll get better. And that seems to be how they handle a lot of things, honestly. But then when you actually start to bring up that I'm kind of feeling things, they're like, okay, let's shut this down and actually get this looked at. And then as soon as you get under a microscope, as soon as you get under x-rays, it's like, oh, this is actually a bigger deal. And I think that's the unfortunate reality of what happened with Kerry. So wish him the best. Hope he comes back soon. He is a much needed portion of this team, but we've dealt okay without him so far. Not going to say that that's going to last forever, but he was the most productive hitter on the team. So the injury bug had to come eventually. It just sucks that it has to come for always the best player on our team, whether it's Riley, who is consistent above consistent. Of course, you want to get hurt now when he's kind of slumping. No, that would never happen. But then Kerry Carpenter, same situation, best hitter on the team in 2024. All right, there you go. 10-day IL. Cool. Sounds great. For context, of course, we split the series in Pittsburgh, technically, like you alluded to. We had the rain out, and we continued on our City Connect rally, and it gracefully ended in the second game of the doubleheader. Man, this team just hates doubleheaders. We just cannot do it. I do not remember the last time we swept a doubleheader. Do you? Do you remember that?
It's not been this.
No, we for sure
no.
we have not. No, we've had 4 or 5 doubleheaders, I think, already this year, and no, we've split every single one of them. But I'm even referring to like last year. Did we even do it last year? I don't know. I can't remember. I can't think of one.
We had to have.
You say
I
that.
seem to remember.
You say that, but I don't know. So we played against Pittsburgh at home. Kiter Montero actually made his debut. That's something that we kind of brushed over a little bit. He looked pretty good. I think he still has some command things. I think probably he is the path for him, I think, is going to quickly turn into an Alex Faedo situation where he might turn into a solid bullpen piece. But I liked a lot of what I saw. He looked pretty good. And his first pitch strikes, they probably need some work, and actually those competitive strikes need some work too. But cool to see him. He served as the 27th man instead of Matt Manning, which was pretty interesting. They of course have a plan. They always have a plan for these guys. It seems like Matt Manning, they want to see a little bit more consistency out of him before he serves as inevitably another 27th man situation. So Kiter Montero was the pick there. Then we split the series in Boston, and man, that series felt like it was a week long. I don't know what was up with that. We had a great first game, 2 terrible games in the middle, like down bad, terrible, and then we win the game on Saturday or Sunday. Thank you, Jesus, because we needed that win in so many ways. So I don't know if you have anything from those couple series that you wanted to talk about, or if you just kind of want to talk more generally about the team. But I did just want to make a quick note on mine for takeaways that Matt Vierling is just crazy right now. His last 10 games, he is batting .385 with a .432 on base percentage and a .770 slugging percentage with a 1,200 OPS. That's in 39 at-bats and 44 play appearances. And what do? You sit him the first game of the Texas series. Whatever. I get it. They wanted to get Malloy in there. They wanted to get Urshela in there. I understand. I'm just kind of playing coy. But 4 home runs, 3 triples. The dude's been carrying our offense since Carey went down, basically. And I think you ride this hot hand as long as you possibly can. The quick thing I just wanted to mention about this, and I do not... Have you seen how he holds a bat, Josh?
I don't know what you're referring to, if that's where you're getting...
You know he holds...
I don't know.
Yeah, you know he holds a bat like a golf club, right?
How so?
Yeah, so he uses an overlapping grip to hold a baseball bat. I've watched...
like pointer over pinky type of deal?
Yep, that's exactly right. I've watched a lot of baseball in my day. A lot of baseball. I've probably seen that maybe 2 other times. Maybe. I can't necessarily put a finger when I saw it, but I had to have seen it before because he's made it this far, and he can't be the only one doing it or have done it before. But wow, it is rare. And it is weird to look at. And the fact that he's finding success, I don't know what he's doing at impact, because I don't know if the finger is staying there. But I'm just like thinking about the mechanics of that, and my mind kind of explodes at that point. But yeah, no, he's using an overlapping grip. It's working out for him. He's talked about how he wanted to pull the ball a bunch. He's pulling the ball a bunch. He has some sneaky power, and he's not just doing it against lefties, which is pretty much what this organization thought he was going to be, which was just a platoon player. to sub in and pinch hit against lefties. No, Andy Ibanez is super good at that, but Matt Vierling actually holds his own against righties too. So shout out to him. Shout out to making something of really, nothing for this offense for the last, week and a half. And oh man, that batting stance is the stance is great. I get the way he holds a bat is just mind boggling. I don't know how he does it, but kudos to him. What is the thing you wanted to talk about as the takeaway from the most recent games that we've seen?
Not anything we haven't already gone over for the most part for the recent games. The Tigers did announce today that they are going to be retiring Jim Leyland's number 10 on August 3rd, and we will get into that in more detail on a later podcast a little closer to the retirement. We'll go into detail on that. I think it's really cool. I think it's a deserved move with his Hall of Fame induction. Interestingly enough, I think there are only 2 current Tigers who have had their numbers retired who are not in the Hall of Fame. Do you know who those 2 Tigers are, Casey? And this does not count broadcasters, to clarify.
Who are not in the Hall of Fame. So we have Lou Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Alan Trammell's now in the Hall of Fame, right? That's the whole thing?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Al Kaline's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Freehand.
I don't believe his number is retired.
Okay. But he's also not in I'm just trying to think of who's not in the Hall of Fame.
Correct. I don't think.
Yeah. I know he's not in the Hall of Fame. I just don't know if his number's retired. Who's the other one? I mean, I know obviously Miggy's number isn't retired yet, but that's what everyone's screaming at right now. Miggy's doesn't have his number retired yet. It will happen, but it's not happened yet. Who's who I'm not thinking of?
Well, Miggy would be my one beef with this move. I think that you have to really, really push on this Miggy thing with what he's meant to baseball and all that. I really think they should have retired Miggy's uniform next. I get that you want to pair this with Leland's Hall of Fame induction, and that makes sense. But
continue with what you're saying. I have a theory about that, though. Sorry, continue.
No, the 2 guys who are not in the Hall of Fame who have their numbers retired by the Tigers are Lou Whitaker and Willie Horton.
Willie Horton. Okay, darn it. Dang it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should have known that. Okay, all right. They need more respect.
Makes sense.
They need more respect.
I'm telling you.
And Freehand not being in there too. Okay. Shout out to Freehand. I mean, that's crazy too. No, my theory on the Miggy thing is it's going to happen a lot longer than we want it to. It's going to take a lot longer than we want it to. If it took, and like I know I have my beefs with Jim Leyland and whatever. I think his Hall of Fame induction is pretty much prompting this, right? But if it took this whole situation that long to do, he was probably the next in line if it wasn't going to be an obvious choice like Miggy or whatever, and we were just kind of waiting for Miggy to retire. I don't think Miggy happens for 5 years. Yeah. When is he? When's his first appearance on the ballot? Is it 5 years from retirement? When is it?
28. Yeah. It's 5 years.
I think it's going
to be retired for 5.
Yeah, and he's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, it's not going to happen anytime soon, which is sad. It should be. It should be much sooner.
They really should have just done it at the last game last year. They should have just done it.
Yep.
But
you know what's even crazier? I think there will be another 24.
Well, Will and I were looking into that today, and there's not been very many Tigers where the number has been worn after the player that has their number retired, if that makes any sense.
Okay, yeah.
For example, Lou Whitaker had 2 players wear the number after him, and that's pretty impressive because of the amount of time it took to get his number retired. Iglesias and Josh Harrison were the only 2 to wear that number. Some of the older guys, Gehringer, Greenberg, those ones are a little bit weird. But when you look at Jack Morris, no one ever wore his number between the time that he stopped playing for the Tigers and the time that the number was retired. I don't believe anybody's wore Willie Horton's number between when he stopped wearing it and the number was retired. So there's seems to be a thing with the Tigers and the respect on the uniform and the number. So I kind of like that, but especially with the stature of Miggy, I am 99% sure there will never be a 24. Who is a player that would merit wearing 24 for the Tigers,
Right.
if it's not Miggy?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I mean, I want to be clear about that. I could see like I mean, again, it's name dropping a little bit, but Juan Soto comes by, but his 22 is going to stick with 22. I think that's a good number for him. I mean, if somehow Judge ever wanted to come over and he just wanted to be annoying and not be 99, he could be 24. I think you're right. I don't think there will be another 24. I just think that, like, if they weren't thinking about it, or someone was like, if they really asked for it and it seemed to be warranted, like, you know, Jace Young starts lighting it up in AAA or whatever, like, you know, and not saying he would ever ask for it, because if he did, we would cast him out. But they could be like, you know, they could have an organizational snafu and say, yeah, well, I guess you could have 24, whatever. We're going to retire it anyways, but whatever. I think there's too many smart people, though, to have that happen. So thankfully it's not going to happen. But yeah, Jim Leland. I think it's warranted. I was saying to you this a little bit before we started recording. I think a lot of this also has to do with the time he's spent post managerial career with the Tigers. He's really made a commitment to the organization as a whole, and I think that's kind of like a reward now. All the things that he's done, I don't think we really see how much of a role he still plays in this team. And I guess now with Scott Harris area, I'm not sure how much it is really anymore, but clearly in the Al Avila time, I think he was still pulling a lot of strings. I have my qualms with a few of the things that he did in the years that we were super, super good. I always will. You can pick apart any managerial career at any given point and you know, cherry pick this situation, cherry pick that situation, and make an argument for why they maybe weren't the best. But I think unequivocally he has been was one of the best Tigers managers that we've ever had. And so to not give him that moment would be quite sad. I couldn't have told you what number he wore, though, which is interesting. So the whole idea of retiring managers' numbers is fascinating to me, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's sometimes when managers even share numbers with other players. So, not saying that this was a
I don't know much about it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's gonna be a whole thing, though. I mean, they're obviously gonna put his number up on the brick, probably. And he's gonna have a whole ceremony August 3rd, you said, right? So, are you going to attend?
Probably not. Probably not.
You die. You got to go out and support him.
I mean, I'd rather go to a scuba start.
Oh, that was fun, dude. Oh my gosh, you just reminded me of all the vibes. Oh, all the City Connects too. They get better every time I see them. They get better every time I see them. In other news, Scott Harris has finally talked, and we have been clamoring for this for, at this point, months. And he has finally opened his mouth and decided to show himself to the public eye for just one little segment on MLB Network. One caveat, and I think this does warrant some kind of spotlight. Him and his wife did just welcome their first child. I believe her name's Rosie. That's adorable. So maybe there was some paternity leave in there somewhere. Maybe he hasn't had his full focus on the Tigers of 2024. And honestly, can you blame him? I mean, you're a new dad. Can you blame him?
No, you really can't. And we wish a heartfelt congratulations to the Harris family.
Yep.
But it was good to hear him talk, though.
It was. Brian Kenny on MLB Now, host of MLB Now, of course, did a pretty interesting segment with him, and there was a couple things to point out. They talked about pretty much everything from the team's kind of sluggish May to the desire for when this team can spend on free agents as a whole. And of course, a lot of it was some PR speak or whatever. But there was one thing that I kind of pulled out of there that I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. He referenced the gap between the majors and the minors, and that is like the whole of my argument with this Jace Young situation and what he did with Colt Keith. And it's like, okay, if you're gonna sit there and acknowledge the gap between these two organizational like tiers, then you have to at least look at your idea of, hey, we're going to leave you in here for as long as possible, and we're going to try to get you as well-rounded as possible, and then throw you into a situation that's clearly different than the one you've been in the last, year and a half. Then I feel like you kind of have to take a step back and say, maybe that's not the best idea. I can understand it with pitching. I can understand it on that side of the ball where you really want to hone in some things and you really want to check some boxes. But hitting in the majors is just so flippin' hard. And if they're not indoctrinated to major league pitching, I just don't know what good keeping them in the minor leagues is doing. And so I just found that interesting that he was talking about that. I know we kind of went over that a little bit earlier. He mentioned that the team is still trying to find its way, and that we're, Brian Kenny kind of asked, so where are you guys at? Where are we as a whole with the Detroit Tigers? And he's like, yeah, we're a young team still trying to find our way. And it's like that's a great descriptor of what we are. I think clearly we kind of came out with quite a bullish head this year, and maybe some bullish predictions, and we've probably fallen short of a lot of that. But at the same time, you look at things like your spreadsheet. That's what I'm looking for. You look at your things like your spreadsheet and look at the win totals from the last 5 or 6 years or whatever. I think yours goes to 4 years, and you begin to realize, well, actually, this team is making some pretty great progress. And you look at the last 60 games of the last, looks like this goes 8 years. In 2016 was the last time that we were 30-30 through 60 games. Every other time we've been below 500 in 60 games. And so if that is by numbers progress. And so, we're young, we're still trying to find our footing. And he alluded to, once we find our footing, then we can supplement for some major league talent in the free agent pool. And that could just be PR speak. At the same time, my head kind of goes, okay, if you have that core and you have the people and the young players that you really like, where do you fill the holes, or what players are you willing to move on from to make the free agent signings or whatever it may be? And honestly, Harris kind of strikes me as a guy that doesn't even really like free agents that much. I don't really think I think he would much rather make a pretty snazzy trade and see if that works out, because I think he kind of understands the trends of free agents at the moment. That is, it seems to be, the league is moving away from them. And so it seems like the days of big pocket Tigers are over for, again, another foreseeable future. But did you have a chance to listen to the interview, and what were some of your thoughts on it?
I did. I don't think he said anything that was particularly groundbreaking or anything that we didn't already know about the team. I thought most of it was just good information for him to hear it from him physically. I think that's kind of important. And just like you said, the reminder that this is still a young team. This still is a team that's going to struggle at times. But no, I'm still on board with the vision for the most part. He's just going to have to peel himself away from the prospects at some point, and we'll really have to the rubber will meet the road at that point. Once we're to the point like, well, this team is ready, let's go for it. can he actually go for it? Can he bring himself to do it? Because that'll be the test.
And does the trend of extending players continue? I mean, like, you look at tonight's game, and you have a pitcher like Tarek Skubal, who just needs to be given whatever amount of money that he wants. And honestly, I will make it work. Now, here's the tough question you have to start asking yourself is like, okay, if we give all this money to Tarek Skubal, is there anything left for a Jack Flaherty? And is there anything left for another free agent that we probably need offense for? I don't know. And that's what's so frustrating is Chris Ilitch really the owner that we trust in to lead this team to winning days? He's not his dad. He's not his dad at all. And when we look at years like the 2010s, we had to supplement, and make tough decisions so that we could go out and get the bag of a player. And did it always work? No. But there was always some kind of idea that the team's willing to do this, and we just haven't been in that mindset in forever. And so now when you look at these homegrown players that you're like, okay, well, what are we going to do with a Riley Green? What are we going to do with a Tarek Skubal? And it's like, if you're not having conversations with them right now, then what's the point? Then there are some real tough conversations you need to have with yourself and with your organization that says either these are our guys or they're not our guys. And either we believe that this team is going to have something before Max Clark makes his MLB debut, and maybe even before Jackson Jobe makes his MLB debut, or we're kind of looking at that crop of people to be the winning core. And if that's the case, then are you going to shell out for a Tarek Skubal? And that breaks my heart, because the reality is this is the best pitcher we've seen since Justin Verlander, and he's doing it time and time again. The dude has legitimate Cy Young contendency in his future, and truthfully, I don't know if he wins it in a Tigers uniform, because they could make the decision, well, we can't afford him. We need a better offensive core. How do we get that? We move on. And I'm not saying it's something that I would do at this moment. I would give him the biggest check you can find, but that might not be how they see it. And so, when you are struggling to find what that core is and who is in that core, you're left with tough decisions like this. And for the record, I think, if we're at or below 500 at the deadline and we're more than 5 or 6 games out of the wild card, I don't think Jack Flaherty's hanging around. I think he turns into Michael Lorenzen this year, and countless other pitchers that we flipped at the deadline for the last 5 or 6 years. And that's heartbreaking, because Jack Flaherty is legitimately so fun to watch. But if you're not having conversations with these guys, you're not looking to extend them, there's no point. And I know you bring up a great point about Scott Boras, and that it's tough to extend the Scott Boras client during the season. But, man, Tarek Skubal is a different breed. Do you have any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I mean, there's really no use in having the conversation about Chris Ilitch, because if John Fisher isn't going to be convinced to sell the Oakland Athletics, then there's no way that the Ilitch family is going to be selling to the Detroit Tigers. So
it's a fair point. A new month is upon us. A new month has begun. Of course, the month of June. Finally, you can put May behind us. Oh, man. We ended up 11-16. We did not salvage May. Did not salvage May. We talked about that at the end of the last pod. Did not happen. So we can turn the page. Thank you. Moving on. We, of course, started the month still in the Boston series, split that series. Now we're in the Texas series, won the first game of that series. We're going to move on to Milwaukee at home. We have a chance to redo the City Connect flair. I'm pretty much convinced we're just going to wear the City Connects every home game at this point. And then we play
Nike better be ready.
Yeah, yep. Someone's got to do something about it. Washington, we play the Nationals. Then we play Houston on the road. Then we play the Braves, who are... Did you see how many games outside of first place the Braves are? I know the Phillies are insane, but have you seen this?
No.
The Braves are
think I have.
currently, just real quick, we're going to do this live. The Braves are currently 7 games out of first place. They're 33-24. One of the best teams in the NL. The NL is historically bad this year. 33-24, and they're 7 games out of first place. The Phillies are on another level, dude.
But puts our situation into perspective a little bit.
100%. Do you know who else we play in June?
The Phillies.
The Phillies. Yep, the Phillies. So then we're away for Houston, away for Atlanta, and then we play the White Sox, and then we play the dreaded Phillies, and then we finish off the month in Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So I guess Anaheim. We finish up in Anaheim. Very much Jekyll and Hyde this month. We have really poor teams, and then we have really great teams, and it's really nothing in between. And so May was our month, dude. May was really a month that you looked at and you're like, there's like maybe 1 week of tough teams, and the rest is pretty gettable, and we kind of crumbled. So naturally, we're going to show up in June, because that's just how this team is. But any high-level thoughts on the rest of the month's schedule?
Sneaky important series. Washington at home. I think you got to win at least 2, if not all 3 of those games. Very tricky road trip at Houston and at Atlanta. Houston has picked it up significantly since their visit to Comerica Park this last month, in which we lost the series to them. So that'll be worrying. And then at the end of the month, we start our only 3 series road trip. So it'll be important for us to get off to a good start on that one. But Washington is going to be important. Chicago is going to be important. And I think LA is going to be a big deal to win some games out there as well. I think those are the only series you look at where you're like, wow, those are teams the Tigers should beat right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
and the current series we're in right now, I mean, Texas is not the Texas that won the World Championship last year. That much is for certain. They obviously pitched
when you've got 10 starters on the IL, it's going to hurt.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're not set up for success, and they obviously faced a really good pitcher tonight in Tarek Skubal, and we faced a really good pitcher in Nathan Eovaldi. The fighting Jake Rogers won the game, and not the Detroit Tigers. So, do you think Philly is still going to be on a crazy stretch towards the end of the month when we have to face them?
Well, hopefully they've cooled off a little bit, but I think they're for real. I think they've got the pitching and obviously the hitting to go pretty far. They blew the game last night. That's who it was. That's who it was. It's Bryson Stott. It also has the golf cross finger grip to hit. I was watching Sunday Night Baseball with Alex last night because the Cardinals were playing, and I noticed that he did that last night, and you were talking about it. I'm like, man, who did I just watch that does that I was completely shocked at? That's who it was.
It's weird looking, isn't it?
It's jarring to see.
I don't even know how you swing a bat.
Does that not hurt?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I guess it's how I swing a golf club. So I guess I don't know if I'm really one to talk, but it makes more sense vertically to me than it does horizontally out in front of me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the bat handle is a lot thicker than a golf club. So,
yeah.
Being able to maneuver
well,
that,
to answer your question, you hope that the Phillies have cooled off a little bit, but I do think they are for real, and they're going to be a tough series.
Ranger Suarez. Some would argue better than Terry Scoop.
Might be hurt.
Oh, really? I didn't hear this.
He left his start early, his last start.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Well, never wish upon bad things, but if you can just kind of stay hurt by the 24th of May, of June,
just
that'd be
not
really fun.
Just not be lined up with the Tigers.
Yeah,
3
that's
games
true too. That's true too. You ever look at a guy and you're just like, how? I mean, like he tops out at like 93, 94. I mean, his stuff is nasty. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, what specifically are you doing that is warranting an under 2 ERA? What do we got?
Oh, he got hit in the hand by a 106-mile-an-hour line drive.
Ooh.
Negative X-rays somehow.
That's bad. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of the Shelby Miller thing. We gotta talk about. Did you see Dylan Dingler throw at the square at the back of Shelby Miller in his rehab outing? Did you see this?
I did. You sent it to me. I hadn't seen it.
Gosh.
Dude, that was so funny.
Thank God he's okay, and like we can all laugh about it. But like, what are we doing,
Dude.
Dylan?
Dingler's got a cannon. That ball still made it to second base.
I know. Yeah, it did. It only like bounced off. It's square enough to bounce straight to the second baseman's glove. Like, wow. All right. Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier, but I think Shelby Miller should be ready to go tomorrow. So I don't know who they're planning on sending down. I think Bo Brisky has been quite
Chafin?
good. Who do you Chafin? Is that your pick?
Chafin?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit
It's
different
not
when you're
happening.
paying them significantly more money than the major league minimum. So
I know. I was being
yeah.
facetious.
I
I've got a
know.
little
I
bit
know.
of a
But I mean,
thing
it wouldn't
with
be a bad
Chafin
pick.
right now.
He did have a better outing in Boston. So they're definitely.
At half of a better outing.
I know. The stuff is there. He just, man, he does not know where the ball's going right now. So, I don't know. We'll see. Josh, do we win the Texas series?
Yes, because Jack's going tomorrow
Yeah.
against Dane Dunning.
we get Kenta and we get Flaherty. Who do we believe in more? Find out next week. Yes, I agree. I think it's so tough. I mean, like the same thing happened with Olsen though, and they got to throw a bad start somewhere, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we've got to Dunning before. We've been here before with Dunning.
He's
I feel
also
like
kind of
offense-
shoved against us before though too.
And he's got a 4 ERA this year.
Have they announced
so.
their starters? As of the beginning of
It's
today?
on the website.
Oh, really?
Dunning
Okay, now
only,
it's
not
announced.
the lat one.
Okay, so
Last one.
they must have just announced it because before the game tonight, they hadn't announced it yet. They were about TBD. So yeah, okay, Dunning's going. He has a 4.3 ERA. Actually, you know what? I've been wanting to do this for a minute, so hold on. I'm gonna look on this. What am I trying to look up? The
No idea.
no, the website.
Savant?
There we go. Gosh, I always know it's like a weird word, and I always forget. Please hold. Please hold. It'll take 2 seconds. Here we go. Probable pitchers. Let's see if they have it loaded up here. Here we go. The current Detroit Tigers roster against Dane Dunning. 54 plate appearances, 22% strikeout percentage, I should say. 11.1% or walk percentage. 229 average against. And WOBA of 302. So again, anything over 300 is not bad. Expected WOBA 302. So maybe a chance, maybe a little bit of chance. The expected WOBA against Jack Flaherty for the Rangers current roster 277. 277. So that's pretty solid. He's struck out 30%, almost 30% of the hitters, and only has a 150 batting average against Jack Flaherty. So the line is on the Tigers. Let me tell you, the line is in the favor of the Tigers. So we shall see. But yeah, I think just like Olsen, man, it can happen. It can creep up at any time, and that offense is pretty good. So we shall see. Skubal didn't have his best stuff tonight, so we'll see how Flaherty fares tomorrow. And of course, we have Maeda, and it's just never know where you're gonna get. Never know where you're gonna get with Kenta Maeda. So we shall see. And then, as I mentioned, back home against the Brewers. How many times are we gonna wear the City Connect jerseys?
Probably 2 games.
Okay.
I'd say.
So we win Friday, we wear them Saturday, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then we'll probably lose Saturday, and we'll go back to the old English D on Sunday.
Right. Okay. All right. all is right in the world when you see the Old English D on Sunday, I will say. Like, it felt a little weird not seeing it on a Sunday afternoon, the last homestand. But, man, I am a big fan of those City Connects. But I digress. Josh, where can the kids find us?
We are on all of our socials at the Old English D Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow. We appreciate you guys giving us a rating on the pod wherever you listen to the pod. I know a lot of people don't stay till the end of these, but if you somehow have made it to the end of these, feel free to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. I know a lot of you guys are on Apple Podcasts, so we appreciate it. We appreciate all the support, even though the team has not been the most exciting recently.
Hey,
but we do appreciate it.
Back to 500. They already proved me wrong. We're going to get over 500 tomorrow. Look at us. Brighter days ahead. Justin Henry Malloy is going to get his first hit tomorrow. Watch it happen.
Oh, yeah.
Josh, thanks so much for joining me. Guys, as always, thank you so much for listening. And as always, go